Hello and welcome to our second panel of the day, War Crimes Against Armenians Ready for Prosecution. My name is Yenikomshian and I have the distinct honor of moderating this very timely panel discussion. Indeed, I believe this is a very important panel. As we know, there are many war crimes that have been perpetrated and continue to be perpetrated against Armenians. So it is of great interest to me and I think the audience to learn more about which crimes are in fact ready for prosecution. It is my privilege to introduce today's distinguished panelists, Dr. Arman Tatoyan, who we are very happy to have here in person, Mr. Gegham Stepanyan, who is joining us remotely from Nagorno-Karabakh, as well as our CFTJ student, Sargsyan, who is also joining us remotely from Nagorno-Karabakh. I'd love to give a warm welcome to all of our speakers, whom I will introduce one at a time. So our first distinguished panelist is Dr. Arman Tatoyan. Dr. Arman Tatoyan is a professor at the American University of Armenia and a member of the European Committee for the Prevention of Torture. He has a remarkable career in the field of human rights and has held various esteemed positions throughout his professional life. Dr. Tatoyan served as the human rights defender of the Republic of Armenia from 2016 to 2022. And prior to that, he acted as an ad hoc judge on the European Court of Human Rights and as an international advisor to the Council of Europe. He also served as the Deputy Minister of Justice and Deputy Agent of Armenia before the European Court of Human Rights. Dr. Tatoyan holds a PhD in law from Yerevan State University and an LLM from the University of Pennsylvania School of Law, where he was honored as a distinguished member of his LLM class. He also studied at the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania. His notable achievements include heading 3 national mandates under core human rights conventions, including the optional protocol to the UN Convention Against Torture, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Dr. Tatoyan is also an experienced practitioner before the Constitutional Court and the Court of Cassation of Armenia. Dr. Tatoyan is the recipient of CFTJ's Victims' Rights Advocate Award in 2022. Welcome, Dr. Tatoyan. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, distinguished Kasia Abgaryan, distinguished guests, and my dear friends and colleagues. Today we have to talk about phenomena that are true, may be painful for us, but are true. And for many years already, we have been documenting evidence, collecting facts, documenting evidence of war crimes, presenting them, composing reports, and presenting them to the international community. Why may think? Why these war crimes happen, and what are the reasons for these war crimes? Well, it is very obvious, and all the analysis, the practice shows that these war crimes are ethnically motivated. These are war crimes that are based on the hatred policies based on ethnic and religious grounds. These are well-planned acts of well-planned policies. One may ask a question, whether these are separate crimes or there is a nexus between them. It is very apparent that these crimes are parts of a single chain, parts of a single policy, and not separate one from another. When we analyze these hatred policies, how they are generated, and what are the roots, it is very obvious that, first of all, these policies are sponsored, are generated by the highest authorities of Azerbaijan. And this has a very deep history. Then these war crimes are highly encouraged by public figures of Azerbaijan. These are famous singers, these are writers, these are people who are well known and are very respected people in the Republic of Azerbaijan. Sometimes even we think, which is worse, the war crimes that are encouraged and sponsored by the Azerbaijani authorities, or that are sponsored, that is sponsored the impunity by the authorities. And there is also a very important thing. Before turning to the description of several war crimes, let me just say that the analysis of the mechanism of committing war crimes is very simple. There are very apparent, common even, I would say, common features. First, what they do. Azerbaijani soldiers usually film whatever they do, whatever they commit. They film videos, but with one very clear purpose. Then to spread this video, to spread horror. And besides, to gain praise, to become heroes of their society, knowing that this is only sponsored and this is only praised by the authorities of Azerbaijan, that they are under the protection. That is why Azerbaijani soldiers are with open faces even, acting very cynically, because they know that there will be no punishment for them. Even if there is a formal investigation, all of us remember the war crimes committed last year, 1 year ago, when Azerbaijani soldiers called commando, newly created military formation under the decree of the president of Azerbaijan that are undertaking their trainings in Turkey. They killed, this was a willful killings of unarmed Armenian soldiers. And later, what was the interesting things? So later it was spread, and moreover, they spread also the name very proudly of this organization, military organization, terroristic organization. It is very obvious that these war crimes have also common features compared to different wars. Let me bring several examples, which unfortunately, I had the chance to collect evidence. When the April War of 2016 started, from the first day, I was already in Nagorno-Karabakh. And I could unfortunately see how Azerbaijanis brutally killed Vareli Kaplanyan and Ramzela Vartanyan from Talish village. These were terrific brutalities. These people were shot in their home and were tortured with their ears cut off. Azerbaijani soldiers also murdered Valery Kaplanyan's 92-year-old mother, Marusia Khalapyan. All the killed persons were aged and reasonably infirm. If we compare with the 2020 war, unfortunately, I also had the experience to come across these war crimes and the facts. We can here, for example, mention the terrific brutality case of Yuri Asiryan. This old Armenian man, born in 1938, lived alone as a pensioner in the village of Artsakh of the Hadrut region. Due to his illness, he was not able to escape from his house during the war. He was captured by Azerbaijani armed forces on October 21, 2020, when the latter invaded Hadrut. In December 2020, a video was circulated in the Azerbaijani media depicting how Yuri is being beheaded by an Azerbaijani soldier. And usually the picture is very common for all videos. One soldier usually is standing, watching the scene. The other one is filming, and one of them usually is committing the war crime or cutting the throat, for example, how it was with Yuri Asiryan case. Another case happened to Gennady Petrosyan, who was born in 1951. He lived in the region of Askeran of Artsakh and did not leave his house during the war because he stayed in his house. He did not want to leave his house. He was captured by Azerbaijani armed forces after they entered the village of Madatashen of Askeran. In November 2020, a video was circulated in the Azerbaijani media portraying how Azerbaijani soldiers cutting Gennady Petrosyan's neck, while two other soldiers are holding Gennady by the arms. And by the way, this was the horrible video when the head of Gennady Petrosyan was put on a pig, trying to depict him as a pig. And of course, they have this comparison, calling Armenians as pigs or dogs. By the way, the Azerbaijani president himself many times called Armenians dogs. You know what was the real reason why he called this? In our office, we tried to understand whether he's comparing Armenians with animals or this is something else. And we came across all of a sudden the old Russian-Turkish dictionary where dogs are associated with gavurs, with disbelievers, so people who do not believe in God. So that is why this word even has a very clear hatred in it. And moreover, even in 2019, when the president of Azerbaijan opened a series of production of drones, the name of these drones was even Itikovan, which means driving like dogs. Let's take 2022, last year, women who were tortured. Last year, unfortunately, was very brutal year in terms of torture of women, of Armenian female soldiers. And the most horrible case, of course, is the case of one of Armenian female nurses, military servicemen, who was very cynically tortured by the Azerbaijani armed forces. And in one of the videos, we could clearly see how she was tortured to death. And unfortunately, we have to face the details of the torture, but the format does not allow me to bring all the details. The only thing that I want to say, they wrote on the naked chest of Armenian female soldier word Yashma. This is another special armed force, a group of armed forces of Azerbaijan, special group that has one of the main purposes to spread horror. And even when we analyze videos of their trainings, their slogans are very clear. Their slogans are very clear: to spread horror and to commit torture, not just an end in itself, but to spread horror, which is, by the way, is based on the hatred policies. And moreover, Azerbaijanis are very actively using modern technologies. Last year, we detected in Telegram channels a very horrible phenomenon when Azerbaijani soldiers are turning stickers, emojis in Telegram into tortured photos of tortured Armenian soldiers. And then when in their conversations, when they send to each other different stickers, emojis, hearts, I don't know, they send heads of Armenians, tortured bodies, mutilations, scenes of mutilations. And within 5 days, 20,000 cases of downloading these Telegram torture photos were detected. With the help of our Armenian IT specialists, we could contact the Telegram founder of Telegram, and we asked them to block these emojis, these stickers. But unfortunately, Azerbaijanis created a new one with cartoon scenes depicting the Armenian female soldier who was tortured with a finger in her mouth. Now, if we take of course, there are plenty of cases, and these war crimes prove that Azerbaijani policies are not separate policies of hatred against Artsakh. This is a policy against anything related to Armenianism, anything related to Armenians. So consequently, this is both against Armenia and Artsakh. Moreover, this policy of keeping these two nations in hatred is a very interesting tool for them, political internal and political external, because they keep their nation, they create it for their nation, the factor of an external enemy, who are the Armenians, and they also use it to distract the attention of their society from their internal problems. Now, when it comes to external side of these policies, when I have meetings with different ambassadors, international organizations, I do tell them that these policies are even dangerous for you. And then they ask questions, why? The reason is that if Azerbaijanis want this, they can turn into a hell every stability of every country. And we had this experience when in Russia, in France, in America, Azerbaijani paramilitary groups, terroristic groups, were literally hunting Armenians. I myself had the chance to be in San Francisco and to see how Armenian church was set on fire and how Armenian school was attacked, how French Armenians were, I remember French Armenians in Paris, in Vienna, in different other cities were telling me that they had the feeling that these are the real genocide era, let's say, because they had to hide from Azerbaijani Turkish paramilitary groups who were literally trying to hunt them. Some of them even had to remove crosses from their cars, for example, flags, so that otherwise to avoid attacks, terrible attacks of Azerbaijani soldiers. Now, if we go and start, and so that is why the conclusion here for this specific part is that this policy there is no end to this policy with these authorities, because these authorities are getting their strength from this policy. That is why there will be no, and moreover, when we see that international society is praising them, there is a question, why this society, the international community does this? They are opening up their hands, and I will speak in details about this at the end of my presentation. I want to bring also one statement, one example from an Armenian repatriated prisoner of war. We have about 200 repatriated prisoners of war, 33 according to the approvals of Azerbaijan still are in the prison, suffering in prisons of Baku, but just want to read out one statement, one example. They enjoyed humiliating and torturing me. They would use pillars to take out chunks of flesh from my body. They had also heated up wire rods, held my arms and legs, inserting those rods in my legs, reaching the bones, laughing out loud at their committed deed. Once I had been given a bowl of rice for lunch. When I started eating, I saw that they had put a dead rat underneath the rice. They forced me to eat it. There was a day when they forced me to act like a dog, stand on my four limbs, and bark of several hours. Is this a one case, separate case? No, of course. This is even one of the lightest cases, I have to say. Now Azerbaijan is trying to present themselves as very white and fluffy. Is it the case? Of course not, because this is a curtain for the international community. In reality, the policy is different. Of course, we have to use tools of international law and other available means to spread this information and the evidence of these war crimes to the outside world. Do these policies have relation to the Armenian genocide? Of course they do have. And it was confirmed by the president of Turkey on December 10 in 2020, when the president of Turkey went to Baku to open a military parade together with the president of Azerbaijan. There he clearly compared the massacres or atrocities of 2020 44-day war with the Armenian genocide, comparing the perpetrators of the Armenian genocide with the Azerbaijani soldiers, with Cevat Pasha, Nuri Pasha, Enver Pasha. And all of these people were perpetrators and organizers not only of the Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire, but also in Baku, in Shushi. Since, for example, Nuri Pasha, who was brother of Enver Pasha, was one of the leaders of Islamic Caucasian Army who committed Armenian atrocities in Baku. And this is a clear nexus already, that this is a single policy that unfortunately to this point has no end. It is very clear that Azerbaijani authorities destroy everything related to Armenians once any centimeter of our homeland becomes under their occupation. They erase, they remove, destroy churches. They erase everything related that may resemble even Armenians. When churches or other cultural heritage, if they cannot remove them, what they do, they just try to present them as Albanian, as something else. But these are true Armenian cultural heritage. And there is no punishment. When in 2020, 22 Armenian soldiers, unarmed soldiers, were killed, Azerbaijan, and there was a scandal in international media, Azerbaijani authorities made an announcement so that an investigation will start. Everyone in the world became so excited that they were even welcoming this statement. But in several days, Azerbaijani authorities immediately announced that this was a falsified video. Of course, whether we were so naive to think that that Azerbaijani authorities would conduct military prosecutor's office, would conduct very fair proceedings? Of course no. And this is the essence, the roots of their policies. During the war, I came across the maps which were in the books carried by Azerbaijani soldiers in their pockets. In their books, there were special maps issued by their state, and they had Yerevan, they had Syunik, and they had Gegham, other provinces, other regions inside the Azerbaijan, covering Azerbaijan. And that is why the president of Azerbaijan even announced that these parts of Armenia are ancient lands of Azerbaijan. Moreover, announced them as his political and strategic goal. And of course, he continues. Currently, what we have, and I'm coming to the end of my presentation, of my speech, what we have with Armenia currently. With Artsakh, everything is more or less, I hope that to the international community is clear that this is a real genocidal policy with ethnic cleansing intentions. But now take Armenia. For those ones who think that these are separate policies, they invaded 3 at least provinces of Armenia. According to different official figures, but still there are invasions, and they destroyed normal life of our civilian population. They do it on purpose. I come from Syunik. I was in Syunik 10 days ago, last time. In Nerkinhan village, there are shootings every day. Every day. People cannot even keep their cattle because they die because of the mines. People have no possibility to visit even the cemetery of the village. When people die, they have to take them to a different city, to a different village. People have no water even, because they have to drink water from the river. And these are the intentions of the Azerbaijani authorities, to do everything so that these people leave these territories, do not allow to destroy their normal lives. Everything behind, and we have also to know that apart from the thing that this is our sacred motherland, behind every centimeter there is a family life. There is a family. There's a person with his own problems. There are pastures. There are grasslands, arable lands, houses invaded by Azerbaijani people. We have cadastral documentation that certify, even from Soviet Union, that all of these houses and the lands and property belong to Armenian citizens. And Azerbaijanis still are strengthening their military positions. Last time I was, for example, in the very late hunt in December, in November, at the end of November. This time when I visited, I even could not recognize Azerbaijani military positions because they were already strengthened so much. They are even in Jermuk, not far from Jermuk. They are even creating bunkers. They are building infrastructures. Is there intention to leave? Of course not. That is why I even think that there is not in the interest of Azerbaijan to have this delimitation process, because if delimitation starts, they would leave. It means that they would leave these territories, which is not in their interests. Unfortunately, time does not allow to present all of the picture, and unfortunately, it is so big. It is so comprehensive, unfortunately, in a negative sense. But we have no chance. We have no chance to give up. We have to struggle. We have to use all the means of international law to present all of this evidence. And lastly, I was last week in Vienna to participate on behalf of the Council of Europe in a very high-level conference of OSCE. And I criticized the international community publicly. Some people maybe did not like it, but I said that I have the impression that the international community reacts when there is a politically comfort zone. When human rights organizations, unfortunately, are confident or think that politicians would endorse their certain actions. That is why they react. Otherwise, there is a very nice principle. You know, if you open the website of the United Nations, open the website of the Council of Europe, European Union, you will see nice expression. No one should be left behind. No human rights should be ignored. Very nice expression, right? It means that everyone should be protected. There should be no gray zones. But let's take our case. This is a nice expression for these nice buildings, for these kind of nice conferences. I said in that international conference, and I have the feeling that the double standards does not allow this principle to be active and to be effective for everyone in this world, and even proclaimed this principle by the UN. That is why human rights organizations, international organizations, also with our help, with our activeness, must be very active, and they should neutralize politicians and not the other way around. This is very, very important thing. And I also realized that before blaming any international community organizations, we have also to see what we did for our nation, what we do to protect our interests. And I think that this conference serves, of course, one of these very important purposes. And I want to appreciate organizers of this very important conference, Judge Kasia Abgaryan, with her Center for Truth and Justice. We have been cooperating very effectively, and I very much hope, and I'm confident that this cooperation will continue. And I want to thank also the American University of Armenia, because the slogan itself says that more than an education. This conference is one of the proofs that we have to stand for our interests, also having cooperation and coordination amongst us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tatoyan, for that insightful discussion and for all of your work in the field. So before I move on, I just want to bring your attention to the current situation in Artsakh. As many of you know, there's utilities that have been cut off in Artsakh, including electricity. So our guests who are joining us remotely today, Mr. Stepanyan and Aras Sargsyan, if you've seen Aras' screen is going in and out, that's because of the electricity cuts, the difficulties of connecting to the internet. So I just want to bring your attention to that, and I'm happy that you're both able to join us remotely. So it's my honor to introduce Mr. Gegham Stepanyan. Gegham Stepanyan is the current human rights defender of the Republic of Artsakh, having been elected by the National Assembly of Artsakh in March of 2021. He played a pivotal role in documenting and cataloging human rights abuses and war crimes during the 44-day war. Prior to his appointment as the Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Artsakh, Mr. Stepanyan served as an assistant to the President of the Parliament of the National Assembly of the Republic of Artsakh. He also served as a professor at the Department of History and Political Science of Artsakh State University. Mr. Stepanyan's academic credentials include a Master of Political Science and International Affairs from the American University of Armenia, which he earned between 2014 and 2016. He also holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from Yerevan State University, which he obtained between 2008 and 2014. Mr. Stepanyan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As you have mentioned, we have huge problems with electricity, and so I just want to say that at 12 o'clock the electricity we will lose electricity in our office, so you know, the picture on the screen will change, so be ready for that. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who is participating in this very important event, and especially to take this advantage to express my gratitude to Judge Garcia Abgaryan and to the CFTJ team for the tremendous work that they are carrying out since the establishment of CFTJ. For the work that is very, very important for us, that is very helpful for all Armenians and especially for my office, because the cooperation with the Center for Truth and Justice is really very valuable for us. It enhances our opportunities, it enhances our capacities, and helps us to tackle issues and to implement fact-finding and evidence collecting activities more professionally. So once again, thank you for the work that the CFTJ team is carrying out for Artsakh, for Armenia, and for all Armenians. You know, we talked about the war crimes that were committed during the war of 2020. And as Mr. Tatoyan mentioned, we presented plenty of reports with facts and with evidences that we collected during the war and after the war. And the war crimes that were committed by Azerbaijan were presented to international organizations, to international actors, and there is any room to have doubt that the authorities of Azerbaijan are acting in a criminal way, that the final goal of the Azerbaijani authorities towards Armenia, towards Artsakh, is the destruction of Armenian people, and the connection of Armenian genocide with the current events that are taking place in Armenia, in Artsakh, towards Armenia and Artsakh, and Armenian people is quite right, because in reality we see that it is really the continuation of Armenian genocide with the same actors. I mean, Armenians being subjected to genocide, and Turkey with Azerbaijan as a genocidal actor. I would like to speak about not about the crimes that were committed during the war, but to take this advantage to present a situation that exists in Artsakh, coming from the point when the ceasefire was established in November 2020. And the establishment of ceasefire and the deployment of peacekeepers in Artsakh was intended to keep to provide guarantee for civilian population in Artsakh, for guarantee for the protection of life of Artsakh people. But what we have and what we had during these 2.5 years since the establishment of ceasefire is completely different situation. Azerbaijan, after the war, Azerbaijan continued its policy, which is intended to eliminate Armenian population from Artsakh, and they continued to they continue the criminal policy by shooting towards civilian communities, towards civilians, civilian infrastructure, and object of social significance. And the whole time period that followed the establishment of ceasefire, we can describe as a period of new crimes of Azerbaijan, unpunished crimes of Azerbaijan. We are, my office is collecting the evidence, is collecting facts, preparing reports, and presenting them to international institutions. But the reaction that we receive is not adequate. And the example and the vivid example of my words is that there is no any international presence in Artsakh. I mean, we are alarming that the situation is very tough, that human rights are being grossly violated, that we are recording mass violations of human rights, and there is no any reaction by international institutions in terms of just sending a fact-finding mission to document by themselves the situation. And the only answer that we get from internationals when it comes to our request to have fact-finding missions in Artsakh is that the Azerbaijani side does not allow. Now, to speak about the crimes committed by Azerbaijan, since the establishment of ceasefire, we recorded 152 crimes, which resulted in killings of 21 people, and among them 3 civilians and 3 police officers and 15 servicemen. 3 civilians were killed in their agricultural fields during the agricultural works, and no one was punished for killing these people. There is even no mechanism for punishing perpetrators. I mean, there is no any mechanism for responsibility for punishing the Azerbaijani side, for Azerbaijani soldiers for killing our civilians. And this is the situation that currently we are living. I mean, in any moment, any citizen of Artsakh can be killed, and no one will be brought to the responsibility for killing our people. And that's why I'm saying that, we are ignored. We are living in a situation where human life has no value, because really we are facing existential threats, and we are not getting any reaction or any help from international organizations, even from human rights organizations who must be the advocates of human rights, no matter where human rights violations are occurring in Nagorno-Karabakh, in anywhere else. I mean, this is just the situation that we are living. We faced 3 waves of escalations since the establishment of ceasefire. First one was in December 2020, when 15 servicemen of Armenian Artsakh Defense Army were killed after the establishment of ceasefire, and we lost new territories, Hin Taver and Khataberd. The second wave was in March 2022, when the village of Parukh was occupied by Azerbaijan and the heights of Karaglu. And it resulted in a new wave of displacement of our people. And the third wave of escalation we witnessed was in August 2022, when Azerbaijan started new escalation to enforce us to change the route through Lachin corridor. By using force, they are always bringing new demands, and they are reaching their demands by using force against us. And except for calls and statements that we receive from international community, there is and to just enforce people to leave their homes. You know, the blockade that we are facing already for 143 days is a vivid example of this permissiveness. Since December 12th, the road, the only way that connects Artsakh with Armenia and with outside world is closed. And we received only calls by international actors, nothing else. Even no any presence on the Lachin corridor, just to really document who is closing the road, why they are closing the road, and what are the consequences of the blockade. We are preparing reports and presenting to them, and the only thing that we get that, you know, stay strong. Yeah, this is the only reaction that I get when I meet with international actors. Stay strong. We know the situation, but you know, we cannot do anything because Azerbaijan does not allow. Now about the consequences of the blockade and the current situation that we face in Artsakh. The blockade resulted in a very tough humanitarian situation, and day by day, the humanitarian situation is getting worse because the Azerbaijani side is tightening the conditions of blockade. They started with so-called ecological action, but you know, from the first day we said that there are no eco activists on the road. There are people who are guided by the authorities of Azerbaijan, who are participating in a crime of trapping 120,000 people, leaving them without food, medication, without normal conditions for life. And during these 143 days, we witnessed and continue to witness food shortages, energy crisis, the violation of many rights of our people, starting from the violation of right to education, to adequate standard of living, to food, and many other. The government of Artsakh introduced a coupon system for providing food to our population. But you know, even in this situation, it is impossible to provide necessary amount of necessary goods to our population, because there are not available supplies from outside. I mean, if before the blockade we used to import 400 tons of essential goods daily, It means that during these 143 days, we should have imported 60,000 tons of essential goods, but we imported just 5,000. And it is impossible to not to have food shortages or not to have shortages of essential goods. And you know, the only way that we can import essential goods is through Russian peacekeepers and through ICRC. And we have very limited opportunities in this sense. The same huge problems we face in a healthcare system. The planned surgeries are suspended. More than 1,000 people are deprived of the opportunity to undergo surgery, and their health situation is getting worse. And they finally will end up in a very critical situation. The ICRC is transferring critically ill people from Stepanyan to Yerevan, but very limited opportunities we have. There are many people that really need to be transferred from Stepanyan to Yerevan to medical facilities in Armenia, but it's impossible because Azerbaijani side does not allow. And how we can describe this situation? It is a state-sponsored criminal policy towards 120,000 Armenians, people of Artsakh. And you may probably know that since April 23rd, the Azerbaijani side installed a checkpoint on the Lachin corridor, which is the formalization of the blockade. I mean, if before the installation of checkpoint, they said that there is that the eco activists are standing on the roads. Now we see that Azerbaijan is trapping 120,000 people by installing checkpoint on the Lachin corridor, which is gross violation of the trilateral statements signed by Azerbaijani president, signed by the Russian president of the Russian Federation and the Armenian Prime Minister in November 2020. And in this sense, the only thing that we see is the condemnation by the international bodies, by different actors, and nothing else. We say that the only way to bring Azerbaijan into to responsibility is to implement sanctions. Why is it possible to impose sanctions against other states, but it's not possible to impose sanctions against Azerbaijan? And this is the main question, that the answer of which we do not get from anyone. And this permissiveness and this situation of not being punished just allows Azerbaijan to tighten the situation, to impose new demands for the final ethnic cleansing of Artsakh. In parallel to the blockade, as I mentioned, we are having deliberate disruptions of electricity and gas, critical infrastructure. People are deprived of heating and hot water in their homes, in educational institutions, in medical institutions. This is really humanitarian crisis, and no one cares. No one cares. I will end at this point, and if there will be.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Stepanyan. Unfortunately, it looks like Sargsyan is not connected to Zoom because of internet issues. At this time, if you have questions, you can write them on these pieces of paper and hand them to our volunteers who are collecting questions. I will introduce Ara though, just so that you are familiar with our students in Artsakh. We do have a group of wonderful clinical students. So Ara is a resident of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, and is currently pursuing his third year of studies at Artsakh State University's Law Department. He holds the esteemed position of chairman of the Student Council of Artsakh State University. His commitment to achieving justice for his Armenian American colleagues led him to join CFTJ, where he has been instrumental in supporting their fact-finding initiatives. Apart from his active involvement in the legal community, Sargsyan is also an accomplished researcher, having authored more than a dozen scientific articles. His primary area of interest is international law, and he has participated in numerous events in this field, including winning the IHL Moot Court. In recognition of his academic achievements and contributions, Sargsyan was awarded the title of Best Student 2022. So unfortunately, due to the internet connection and electricity issues, looks like Ara is not able to join us currently. But I hope you have the opportunity to hear from him later. We'll move on to the question and answer portion. So I'll start with the question for Dr. Tatoyan. First question is, Dr. Tatoyan, you mentioned various crimes committed by Azerbaijan. Are those cases being prosecuted, and in which stages are they?
Thank you for the question. Of course, there is no prosecution in relation to any of these cases, unfortunately. There is no prosecution at the national level, I mean, not Armenia, I mean, local level Azerbaijan, they would prosecute at least against its own soldiers. There is no prosecution at the international level. And this impunity, of course, leads to new crimes and opens up the hands of Azerbaijani authorities. And Mr. Stepanyan just mentioned that, unfortunately, sanctions, responsibility, not only criminal responsibility, but meaning even political, economic, even individual responsibility, unfortunately is not in place, which is probably the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems, issues, if not the biggest right now.
Dr. Tatoyan, so then the next question is, how do we prosecute cases specifically in Artsakh jurisdictionally? And if Azerbaijan does not allow access to Artsakh, isn't that the first fundamental case to prosecute?
Yes, I think this is itself not allowing, or the current situation is already something that is subject to investigation, because this is not a case, a separate case as it is, or a separate step, but this is a whole policy, and we have to be very careful with the motives, with the intentions. We have to recognize what are the intentions of not allowing people, what are the motives. These are very clear. This is the intention to exterminate, this is the intention to force people to leave their territories. And then Mr. Stepanyan just mentioned all the motives and the factors that complete these motives and the intentions. We have just heard that at any moment people may be killed there, and which is so realistic, that is proved also by evidence. The only thing is that Azerbaijan just changed the ways, their tactics. If in the past, meaning last year, for example, they would shoot, they would use their armed forces in case of Kramort, in case of other villages. Now they are using so-called soft methods with the so-called eco-activists who are politically, of course, motivated and politically governed. Now they have they are changing it to so-called formal jurisdiction, or trying to give legal title to it, because with the installment of this border crossing point, it means that there is already, well, at least they try to show that there is a jurisdiction, and which is even of course much worse than ever could be, because it means that any person who could cross this through this border crossing point, Azerbaijani authorities may do literally whatever they think necessary or they want. This is starting from seizing different things, ending up with arrests, searches, I don't know, detention, capturing people, and I have to, and I think that we have to take like as a comprehensive phenomenon this closure.
Thank you, Dr. Tatoyan. Now that we have the internet, I want to give Ara an opportunity to speak. Ara, the floor is yours. Okay, unfortunately, it looks like we lost the internet again. So, Dr. Tatoyan, the legal process for prosecuting such war crimes can be complex, and it involves different international courts and international organizations. What, in your opinion, is the ideal prosecutorial route?
Well, I know that there was already a discussion on ICC, and still there are several discussions that to come. I myself announced several times that Armenia should have ratified this convention, the ICC. Of course, the current situation is difficult, and we have to be very careful in our steps, because given the challenges and the threats that we face, unfortunately, right now, and because current situation is difficult. But legally, as a mechanism, I think, although again, ICC is also being criticized for being politicized, and there are cases when international lawyers, international scholars, they do criticize ICC for its lack of effectiveness, and for also acting sometimes in a politically comfort zone.
Dr. I'm so sorry to interrupt you,
yeah,
Dr.
Sure.
Ara, I want to give you the floor. Yeah, go ahead, Ara. Ara, we can't hear you. Give us a moment to work out the audio.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and colleagues, as a law student and a clinician with the Center for Truth and Justice, I will present to you the factual testimonies of Armenians living in Artsakh, living on their ancestral land, and to explain that we no longer have options. Self-determination is no longer for the purpose of recognition as an independent state, but rather to take the risk of 120,000 Armenians yearly. Today, the people of Artsakh are living in an open freedom. We are not allowed to exercise any freedom. We cannot travel anywhere. If we leave Artsakh, we will not be allowed to return. If we go for medical care, we cannot be reunited with our families. If we need to travel for education purpose, we will never see our families again. On December 10, 2022, witness number 23 LC-003, who was an employee of the Ministry of Education of Artsakh, took 16 minors aged 10 to 70 to Yerevan to participate in the cultural program in Armenia. On December 22, when they attempted to drive back home, they were not allowed to return, and the blockade of Artsakh went into effect. 60 children became stranded in Armenia, separated from their families, left in limbo. This was the beginning of the blockade that has now been in effect for over 4 months. In the following days and weeks, these children underwent stress and anxiety, panic set in. After substantial negotiations, witness was able to transfer the children to Artsakh with support of the Russian peacekeeper. But their return was the trip of terror will never forget. On their way back, Azerbaijanis in military came stopped the bus and entered the bus, scaring and terrorizing the children. One of the children fainted. Testimonial evidence shows that the people of Artsakh are under the threat of harm and death on a daily basis. Schools have shut down, businesses have gone bankrupt, stores are empty. On a daily basis, there is shooting and sniper attacks on people. Loudspeakers are placed in villages, blasting Turkish music and Muslim prayers. Foods do not enter the country. Raw products are no longer available. Medicine is scarce. Artsakh is being starved to death. This life is Artsakh under Azerbaijan's control. The Aliyev regime has given us two choices: live or submit to Azerbaijan's rules. But we know what it means to live under Azerbaijan's rule. It means submission, second-class citizens, operation, and torture. It means giving up our ethnicity, our tradition, our language, our ways of life. We have been there before, and we cannot accept it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is systematic, deliberate, ethnic cleansing. The question I pose today is the following: how does witness live as a free man in Artsakh? The answer is simple: he cannot under Aliyev's regime. Therefore, the choice is clear. Just like Aliyev stated, either we leave or we submit. We cannot submit, because submitting means an immediate death. Remedial cessation is the only option to save the lives of 120,000 civilians. Also, the international community will have blood on their hands. International law exists for a reason, to be implemented. Remedial cessation is the only viable solution if witness and thousands like him are to life. Remedial cessation is the only guarantee for life in Artsakh. It's important for Artsakh to be part of Azerbaijan, and any status of Artsakh within Azerbaijan will lead to a new genocide. The realization of the right of self-determination is possible without independent statehood. Statehood is ontological for Artsakh Armenians. The international community, organizations, states, and especially the OSCE co-chairs country must respect and guarantee the right and security of the people of Artsakh. The only way to which is to respect the right of Artsakh to self-determination through cessation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arajan. I'm very happy you were able to join us even with the internet difficulties. So let's continue with the Q&A session. Mr. Stepanyan, you mentioned the difficulties you have with discussing with international organizations what is happening in Artsakh. There's a lot of challenges, including political and diplomatic pressures and issues. What, in your opinion, is the greatest hurdle to gaining international support for legal action and prosecution? Mr. Stepanyan, would you like me to repeat the question, or? Yeah. Oh. So, as you mentioned, there are difficulties with gaining international support and discussing the issues in Artsakh with international organizations. What, in your opinion, is the greatest hurdle to gaining international support for legal action and prosecution?
with all the mechanisms that are being implemented for bringing Azerbaijan to responsibility and accountability in a legal sphere. But I can say that in terms of finding real solutions for the tackling the issue that our people is facing now, it is much needed to have political solutions. Without political solutions or only having legal solutions, we will not succeed. Because in order to have effective mechanisms of solutions, we should have political will in international institutions, in international organizations, and from different. We should see the manifestation of that political will by different states. So my conviction is that, and also after having done so many fact-finding work, after having documentation of so many crimes, I can say that the only having legal ways, only implementing legal ways is not enough to help the people of Artsakh. But in order to bring new engagement from international institutions, I think that we should use all the available mechanisms, all the available ways from Artsakh, from Armenia, from Armenian diaspora, and the institutions, the organizations that really care about human rights. And in this sense, I think that preparing reports, engaging them into the preparation of those reports, and cooperating with not only Armenian institutions, but with different institutions which are also interested in human rights protection, will also help us to have more international attention, and finally will help us to engage international community into the situation that currently exists in Artsakh.
Thank you, Mr. Stepanyan. Unfortunately, we are out of time. There's still many questions I would have liked to ask our panelists, but I want to thank them for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Tatoyan, for being here in person and for all of your work on the ground. Thank you, Mr. Stepanyan, for joining us remotely, and I know how difficult it is for you to join us, but we are really grateful, and for all of the work you're doing as well. And to Ara, who is not currently able to join us, but thank you to our whole panel.